Hello and welcome to GRIDwrap on this fine Monday. Well, evening it is to me, but it's also the solstice, isn't it? It's the first day of spring. I'm very happy. I'm very, very excited. I get very, very excited whenever the whisper of role play or game or new comes up. And I have with us today David Post, who's CEO of NextIsland.com. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We've had a rare old time getting David in. We're really happy. Is this your first time in Second Life, David?
It's actually my second time in Second Life. I was in early, and for reasons not to necessarily discuss, it was just not necessarily what I wanted to do, and it wasn't exactly what my vision was for a virtual world. Nothing that's bad about Second Life. It's more that my vision was different, and that's what Next Island is now. Hopefully, something different.
So something different. Now, Next Island is part of Entropia. Is that right?
It's on the Entropia platform. So the way the system works. There will be a number of planets on the same platform using much of the same gameplay, but the personality of each of the planets will be vastly different than for example, Calypso, which has been up for about 6 years, is more sci-fi, and Next Island is more kind of paradise with time travel. That's one way to describe it.
Paradise with time travel. That sounds like two paradises to me.
I hope so.
So we'll come to that in a minute. But you said that Second Life wasn't what you wanted from a virtual world. So what did you want?
Well, I wanted a place that there was a game being played, so you were getting better and improving your skills, and that was my vision from when I first started, probably three plus years ago, and waited to try to do this myself in Silicon Valley, and then when I met the MindArc people who owned the Entropia Universe technology, it seemed to fit what we wanted to do. So. We really are only up a couple of, about less than 2 weeks, being available for players. But as I said, each planet, and there will probably be a number of planets, there are 3 now. I'd say that you could look at down the road and see 15 planets over the next 5 years. But each of them will be different in its personality, different in the gameplay. But what they will share will be some of the things that brought me to Entropia Universe, which is the real cash economy that I thought is just great for this, without intermediaries being involved.
Can you explain real cash economy? Because we're sitting in Second Life at the moment, and we have an economy called Lindens, and so that's the intermediary, presumably, that you're talking about, which would be Linden Labs in this case. That we essentially the residents of Second Life buy their Lindens from sort of Linden Bank, effectively.
What happens is that they worked very hard to create a system that, number one, is connected to the dollar. So the PED, which is what it's called now, it may change its name, is 10 to $1. And as you accumulate assets, and if you want to sell things, and you create your own kind of account, then anytime you want to trade that in, you can trade it in, and then dollars will come back to you. So that's a system that's going to work throughout all the planets, and just the way you will, and you can go from one planet to another, and we're seeing that people have come to Next Island in its first couple of weeks from other games, but also from Calypso, and the gameplay on Next Island will be a unique personality. although many of the things you do are similar from Calypso to Next Island. The way you will envision the world and what you'll do there will be different and perceived to be different. Of course, we have time travel, which is unique to us.
I'm going to come to the time travel, don't worry, in time.
Okay, good.
Well, I want to start off at the very beginning, because very often I've been privy to see a little bit of the backstory, I think, but very often, you know, for example, people will say, I had this dream and I sat down and I started doing this on my computer, and then suddenly there was that, and then it gathered a pace and became that. And of course, a sort of very famously, as there's a film out at the moment about Mark Zuckerberg, for example, starting off these ideas that start off with something very, very small. What was your seed? What was your seed, actually?
My inspiration for this came from something that I'll give you the best examples of this is what actually happened. This is not written by a PR firm. This is really what happened. When I was 10, I sustained an injury and wound up in a body cast for about 3 months. And during that time, I was alone. I was pretty embarrassed by the fact that I was in almost a full body cast, and I didn't want to see anybody. So I was in being alone and having all this time. I created a fantasy world, a place called Elysium, which was a new country in the South Pacific. And I worked on it during those 3 months, but because it became so cool to me and so interesting to me, and the ability to invent things that had not been invented and create things that had not been created, and actually some of them still haven't been created. But I invented this place, and what happened was that it continued on. And every day or so, I would add to it. So I worked on Elysium for about 8 years.
Wow.
And a lot of action of what happened and why it happened and how this country was created and how the superpowers and evil nations and so forth wanted to get their hands on all this technology that had been created in Elysium. At the end of 8 years, when I just kind of maybe outgrew it, I still had to wait for 30 years for the technology to allow me to make this happen. So Elysium was the backstory. It still is the backstory. Next Island is the next generation of what happened, and they time traveled and parallel universe technology to get from Elysium, which became in danger, to other places. And the place they tried to get to was a place on Entropia Universe and a new planet that became Next Island. So the backstory is part of our story, and it's very close to my heart because I spent a lot of time on it. And now that I've connected the past with the present and the future, I think it's really a true dream come true. Not one that was created later, but really what happened then.
Well, that's a fantastic thing to happen, isn't it? And also, did you find it difficult? I mean, it truly became part of you then,
Yes.
Next Island? Or that?
Well, I mean, the Elysium, which I decided that I would make that the place they came from rather than the new place. I was building a country on my own, and all of the aspects of lifestyle and technology and medical and how schooling was done, and everything was done with a kind of a clean easel, so that you could, your creation of this, and people could feel it. Now, understand, for those 8 years, nobody saw it. Nobody knew anything about it. About later, maybe 20 years later, I thought about doing a book, and maybe a TV series. I spoke to some people in Hollywood about it, but it wasn't right, and I decided not to do anything until the metaverses came along and virtual planets and virtual worlds and whatever it's going to be called in the future. And I said, this is perfect. This is new, like that was new so many years ago. So it's very close to my heart, and at some point it will be interesting to the people who learn about it, because I've left out about 15 years of development of what happened when they got there for the players to create as part of their backstory or the backstory from the time they left Elysium to the time they got to Next Island to today. That's a long answer to a short question.
Yeah, that's what I like. It gives me the questions I want to ask next. I mean, you talked about this fantastically visual imagination of the child, David, really, and the fact that you've hung on to this. I mean, I have some knowledge that you have some TV background, and do you think that this took you into television and into production of virtual worlds?
I don't think the television era of my life was kind of independent. I never looked at that. I like to allow my creativity to run wild, and in television, in broadcast television especially, because that's what I was running a network. You can't do that. I mean, we did interactive television and cool stuff like that, but I never looked at this and said I could create a series, because it would be prohibitive monetarily to create something that would be, in some ways like Lost was and Avatar was and things like that. When the virtual worlds came about, and I skipped, some years of my career where I was involved in new industries. I try to project what's going to happen. And I have a greater vision of what I believe the virtual worlds will be in the future. I think much more so than what people think it'll be. And I'm going to give you two very quick stories that describe where I come from on this. When I started a company called Page America, and that was in the paging and messaging business, and I created a company called Cellular Systems Inc., which was in the cellular business. As absurd as this may sound, when I went out to tell people about cellular phones, and people laughed at me because they said, these things are the size of a shoe. Why in the world would anybody want to use that? If they want to reach me, they'll leave me a message and I'll call them back when I get back. And that was most people. And the projections of cellular phones when I started my company, which won the New York license, was maybe it would hit 5 million users, maybe 8 million users in the whole country. And of course, there's like more than 8 million in New York City alone. But most people tend to poo-poo new ideas until they say, oh, I knew all along that was going to happen. And the same thing with paging. I mean, nobody wants this. Nobody's interested in it. I have a way that works for me. A doctor needs it. A repairman needs it. Maybe a hooker needs it. But I don't need it. And then, of course, they all had it. So I look at things and say, what do I believe that Next Island and other virtual worlds conceivably can be? And that's what I built this on. And the backstory just happened to be an opportunity to make my childhood dream come true. But I look at the virtual worlds marketplace, and I say, if we allow this to grow and we allow it to be exciting and fun, then people will want to spend a lot of time there. Not just hunting and not just fishing and not just mining or crafting, but to be there with their friends. And if that happens, who knows how big it can be.
Well, I know that we
I hope
certainly.
for all sake that's the case.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like anything; it has its teething problems, and those are the people who go through it. And there've been other sorts of problems, all sorts of problems. Now tell me, what can we do in Next Island? Now I've snuck in there, and I've used the odd weapon more by accident than design, it has to be said. I'm not a very good gamer. Um, but so what goes on in Next Island?
Okay, it's a good question, and it's a very fast-moving target because today the activities will include hunting, not for other players, but hunting for what they call mobs, who are like monsters, and mining and crafting and creating things that you can sell to other people. Of course, it's a real cash economy. People do play differently. So there are probably about 80 professions that people take on, and they really take them on as professions because they want to make money. And so the gameplay is a little different. It would be like going into a casino and going over to the slot machine, and the slot machines on the left are you will play, and if you win, the applause goes off and so forth, and that's it. On the right side are slot machines that you put in a quarter, and if you win, you could win $5,000 or $10,000. Well, people will always go to the one where they can make money. So the gameplay is going to continue to evolve. We're only, as I mentioned, after 2.5 years of development, only a couple of weeks up. And we have new activities beginning. There's events that will be coming on every week, new kinds of events and new kinds of contests and new kinds of content. So I look at this in the way that what could I give people to come to Next Island? What can I give them that will allow this without it being, kind of the Wild West, but more so that they can have fun and they know that something new is coming all the time. There's something new. It may not just be from us. It may be from other players. It may be from MindArc, the platform, where there'll be new activities like helicopters and things like that, which went on recently in The Voice, which is going on, just coming on this week. But also to be brand friendly and allow companies, forget about putting your name up on a sign, because I don't believe in that, and I don't think that anybody cares one way or another, even though game stuff has worked to some extent. I look at brands and say, what could you do that would be fun for the player? And to some extent, my inspiration, I have a 10-year-old, and I've gone to Epcot about 4 times with her, and every time we go, and she's a year older, we see things. And what's so interesting that some of the best things that are in Disney are sponsored by companies without pushing it in their face. So that the gameplay or the experience is fun, and it just happens to be connected to a company. Like the old days of television, where the initial shows and the most successful shows were sponsored shows, even though, Texaco Star Theater and things like that, there wasn't a lot of Texaco going on, but people still remembered that they had fun watching something. So I look at this and say, what can people do? How can they play that it could be connected to a brand, and that brand will help create the content? And we have 2 of those now. If I may, I'll just mention them quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
The first one is Caroline's, which is probably the leading comedy club in the world. It's based in New York, and I went to Caroline early on and said, I want to build Caroline's in Next Island, and I want people to come up and go on stage and do, they may be bad, and they may be great, and they may be professionals. So the club is up, and the first activities of the club will be kind of open mic and a comedy contest where avatars will compete to be the winner, and the winner will get he or she will be brought to New York, and all expenses paid, and get up and do 15-minute riff at Caroline's for real. So some people may not want to win that; they may win something else, but that's a pretty cool thing. If I think I'm an aspiring comic and I'm in San Diego or Seattle or in another country, they can come to New York and they can get up and do their 15 minutes, and they may stink, but they're going to have the opportunity to do that.
Well, I could tell you there'll be half a dozen people making a stampede for nextdialer.com right now, I think.
So they will be able to, once they're registered and in, they'll be able to create a comedy video or get up on an open mic night and do something. And then the players will vote for who they like. And then we'll do it by a process of elimination until there's, one comic left, maybe one professional and one amateur. And those are the ones who will win the opportunity to go on stage for real. And then when it's on stage for real, it'll also be in Caroline's on Next Island. A second one is a deal we did with Young Rubicam, Y&R, the major ad agency, that is just beginning. And it is a show where the male avatars will try to win the heart of a female avatar. And sounds familiar, huh? And they're creating this, and at the end of the show, it's Y&R's producing it, so they may decide, to change what they're going to do at the end. But at the end, we may be able to see who the real winning people are. The female avatar will be great looking anyway. But what the male avatar looks like in real life, we'll see. And whether it's just a virtual romance or it becomes a real romance, we'll see. But they'll be doing things to try to stay in until there's, two left, and then she'll pick the one that she wants. So there's a lot of that stuff that's going on right now. And I believe that, I don't have all the ideas. I may have a few, but I don't have them all. And by talking to companies and allowing people to create content that helps their brand, or a celebrity who creates a club that helps him or her bring people in and things like that. If you just look at what things people are interested in, you say everything can work in a virtual world, with, in our case, the exception of sex. Because that's a decision that was made for me, not by me. So when it comes to content, there won't be a day when something new won't be there, won't be added.
I've got a couple of questions here from the audience. One is from Rekha Wheats, who says, how is the Entropia technology different from Second Life technology?
Well, I think that not being an active Second Life player, I can't speak to some of those things. I can only speak to the things that I believe are unique to Entropia Universe and Next Island. The gameplay, there is a game, and the game, you're progressing, you get better, and like you want to buy a weapon to use hunting, you can't buy that a certain kind of weapon until you've reached the level that you need to reach. So they've spent a lot of time, 7 years, developing what gameplay would be attractive to all users. We were selected by them to go after the newer players, not the World of Warcraft or the Calypso players, but the newer players, Second Life players. And then as we go down the ladder to what we call the power casuals, it is my belief that people who have started in Farmville, should pardon the expression, although I'd like to have his money, and then went to Cityville, which was a step up from Farmville, will begin to look for something more enriching, more engaging that they can come to. And so we've positioned ourselves to be that for the casual players, and that there's always new technologies being introduced for the people who are on the Entropia Universe platform. So it's not like we could talk about what the differences are today, but really it will continue to have differences. It's not going to ever stay pat. There'll always be new things, and the Swedes are coming to New York tonight, and we'll be with them tomorrow, and we're going to propose some pretty crazy ideas to allow people to want to keep coming back and want to keep doing new things. So from Second Life standpoint, I guess in my inexperienced view of it, it's not as much a game as what goes on in Entropia Universe. Entropia Universe is a game similar in some ways to what happens in World of Warcraft. And as my description in something I just did was, could you imagine having the gameplay of World of Warcraft and the graphics of World of Warcraft and the community and the ease of learning of a Cityville? And you put those two together, and that's what Next Island's all about. Plus, we have the time travel and the real cash economy. So I think we're pretty well positioned for the future, but we're never going to be happy with where we are. We're always going to be looking at what we can do.
So it sounds like you've got a very good arc covered, which is from the sort of inexperienced user right the way through to the addicted gamer in a sense.
Right, and I think that comes from my having lived in a marketplace of the introduction of cellular, and people saying, who needs that? Nobody. I don't want to be bothered. They're going to leave me a message and I'll call them back. And that is, and now cellular is looking old because texting and messaging and Facebooking and tweeting and all of those things are replacing that. We're in a world of, as the technology advances, so will hopefully the opportunities for people to do more things. I just think the virtual worlds, and I'm speaking in terms of the industry, not so much in terms of just Next Island, that creates the best opportunity imaginable. For example, one of the things that is going on in this new Ericsson situation is the ability to pick up a virtual phone and call people outside, not just inside the world, outside the world as well.
I think there's been some of that in here, that where people have experimented with that, whether or not it catches on, I don't know. I've had the experience where I've been in here and I've had a friends turn up on my sim and say, we've been trying to get hold of you all day. So we knew where you'd be, so we've come in to get hold of you. Because once I've got my headset on and I've got my head down doing some work or whatever it is that I'm doing, then I'm deaf to everything around me.
Right. Well, I think that's, I think people are getting more and more that way. But they still want to be connected.
Yeah.
So if you you meet that, you meet those two criteria of, I want to do what I'm doing, but I also want to be connected to others, you have a winner.
It's very interesting to hear you talk about bringing in corporations, and you're saying to them, look, what are you going to offer? What are you going to offer the player? Not what is the player going to give to you necessarily.
Well, I noticed that in Second Life, where there seemed to be, and I apologize for, saying things that are not necessarily all correct, but I'll give you, it seemed to be a lot of corporations there, and they began to use it for their own internal use. And I said to myself, there's no reason why you can't help brand your company to these people who are young and vibrant, and they're in there, and their avatars in there, and they may be spending a couple hours a day in there. Why shouldn't you connect your brand to them by giving them something that, in a way, is similar to what Walt Disney gave corporations in the early days of Epcot? A great experience. You'll remember it, but it happened to be sponsored. So what? It's okay. But, you know, signs and things like that, I just am not, I don't buy into. The other thing is that corporations or brands or celebrities can create virtual goods that become part of the game. So you could be eating a hamburger, and every time you eat a virtual hamburger, you get a short amount of time where you have some powers that you don't without it. So you can get people to do things, try things, and learn about your brand without upsetting them. I mean, it becomes part of the game. That's the way I look at it. I'm not looking to have part of the game be, you know, private meetings, because I just there are other places to do that, and you know, well, I don't think we're going to be one of them.
A different setup. Now, let's talk about this creation of goods, because the real exchange of money, because there've been all sorts of stories coming out of Entropia, fantastic stories of huge sums of money well, certainly by my standards, huge sums of money changing hands for virtual goods. So I think the most famous one is, I think, $350,000 for a nightclub.
No, there was one, 635,000.
Wow.
The 300,000 was the first one.
All right.
And then another one was more than a nightclub. It was kind of a destination, but it was part of Calypso, which went for over 600,000. I think that those are rare, but it does say something. It does say that there is a value to virtual goods that may be in some cases, you know, 5 cents, but in other cases maybe $5,000. And, you know, it's like one person, when they were looking at this, saying, well, what is art? You know, you can't sell the art for what the paint costs, because the paint may be $20 worth of paint for, you know, $50 million painting. It's what people perceive as the value that they're prepared to pay. So the guy in Canada who bought the $300,000 club, who I'm trying to, you know, going to be talking to about getting involved in creating some things the next time, those are the rarities. It may come to pass that people will spend more and have more, but still in all, the gameplay as it is today, even if they're playing for 5 cents, you know, or you know, 50 ped, they're having fun, and they feel like there's a value for them. So the big virtual things will continue, but I'm not sure that there will be so many of them. I hope that somebody creates a destination in Next Island that they could sell for a couple $100,000 because somebody believes that they're going to make money from it. But because it's a real cash economy, you could show numbers. You could show what that's generating. Would I do it? I don't know. I mean, I've got a lot more than that invested in Next Island, but that was in development of something that other people can use rather than a destination. I can't speak to what motivates somebody to spend $300,000 or $400,000 to buy something, but you know what? It may turn out that they were right. I can't say.
You just never know, do you?
That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, there is, you know, from the very, very small thing. I mean, well, not the small thing. You know, we were talking about cellular decade, if you like, talking about the digital age and all the rest of it. I mean, nobody ever believes it's ever going to make money, as you pointed out. You know, and then somebody turns around. It's the electric light bulb, the wheel, reinventing the wheel. That's opportunity, really, isn't it? I'll come on to the future of virtual worlds in a moment. One of the things that you were talking about having invested a lot of money, and I'm quite sure you will have done, in nextime.com. How is it? I see from your website that actually it's free entry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Free entry and download. But what happens is the game, you can play, and there are people who play that don't spend any money at all. But if you want your avatar to look like yours does, and you want people to look at you when you're walking around or flying around or on your boat, you will want your avatar to look good. So you'll spend a little bit of money. You want to have weapons. You can earn them by doing things for others as well as for yourself. But also, if you decide to open an account and you put $25 in, then you could do a lot of things with that $25. So I think that from the standpoint, every player will play differently. Every player will have likes and dislikes. And I want to make as many of those people happy as possible, and hopefully attract some of the people from Second Life to come and check out Next Island and be a part of it. And it's really the pioneering days. So anybody who comes in and does something may find that, I was the first one to open that kind of shop, or I was the first one to time travel to ancient Greece and set up a club in ancient Greece or something. Again, it's all got to be appropriate. I think that this story is just beginning. It's not even, 1/1,000,000th of where I think it's going to change and go. Time travel is something that was part of my mindset. And if I'm sorry, Dousa, if I preempted something that you were going to get to.
No.
But I wanted to do this. I didn't see anything out there that looked like it. I wanted to make it very different to time travel. I had to fight hard with the Swedes to make it so that if you became a great player and you had this submachine gun that only a great player can have, you can't take it with you when you get to ancient Greece. So you got to earn your way there. Then you have to time travel there, and when you arrive there, it's just you. There's nothing with you. So the way the game plays is you can't take anything back in time, but you could take things forward in time. So if you find a Grecian treasure, you could bring it back to Next Island, or bring it to Calypso, or bring it somewhere else and sell it. So it is to some degree, a version of what goes on in Next Island, but it plays to the times. You will be like a Grecian in 300 BC. And just to give you a little bit of scoop of things that are coming, we're going to be adding Amazon. So that's been one of the things I've been trying to get done. So there'll be a women's nation within ancient Greece. There will be the Olympics of ancient Greece, where there were like maybe 8 sports, and we'll probably have 5 of them when we start, that you can do and become a hero. I mean, one of the areas that I just, I think human nature has to, an interest in is fame. There's some of the things we're going to do. We're going to have dating in there and things like that. But as I said, no virtual sex. But being famous is something that today, more than ever before, is on the minds of a lot of people. They may not admit it, but they feel it. So I look at, the virtual worlds as a place that people can obtain fame and then talk about it in their Facebook or talk about it as they tweet or anything that they want to do. So, this is, without using the expression inappropriately, this is like having a second life.
Well, you're right about the fame thing, aren't you? I mean, I think that's the whole point of a second life, really. I don't mean that I want to get famous or anything in a second life, personally. I think it's about putting right the things that you couldn't get right in real life, and living the life that you can't live in real life.
Well, you could to some extent.
Inaccessible for some reason or
right. I mean, it may be. I'll give you an example. What if you were a shy person in real life, but in Next Island you wanted to be assertive? Well, maybe by playing that avatar that way, you may become more assertive. So in a way, one psychologist, a well-known one, who was part of this, said to me, people can try out alternative personalities, not just alternative looks.
I think that's true. I mean, there have been studies that people have been kind of matching up to their avatars, and because the avatar gives them, the physical presence of the avatar gives them the confidence that they don't necessarily have in real life.
Right.
But that's actually been finding its way into real life. So, I mean, something we haven't talked about here, and well, there are two things. Number one, who are the Swedes? You talk about the Swedes, and this is very interesting because the Swedes are arriving tomorrow. It's a bit like, I mean, if they were the Danes, they'd be the Vikings, wouldn't they? But who are the Swedes?
Well, the platform partner is a company called MindArc, and it's a Swedish company.
Yeah.
And as I told you, I started this in Silicon Valley, and I found that most of the art and the avatar looks and the scenery and destinations all look the same. Second Life was the best of them, but to be a lesser clone of Second Life was not an aspiration I had. So I pulled the plug, and MindArc had it figured out. They had the gameplay figured out, and they had beautiful graphics. And I'm very proud of the graphics because the people go in, the first thing they see when they go to the next island is, wow, is that beautiful? Look how nice that water is. Look how nice the mountains and the volcano is, and all of those things that look so real. So if you're going to live this virtual fantasy, let's make it as nice as it could be. So that's who the Swedes are. They're just our platform partner. And actually, the guy who is coming tomorrow is a Brit, so it's so he's just
an obvious Swede.
Yeah, he lives in Sweden, but he's a Brit.
Ah. And the thing that strikes me, because of presumably the gaming element of it, is what age range are you looking at? It seems to me that it's very general at the moment, but do you have a limit on age range?
If you ask me what audience I'm looking for, best audience for us at this moment will be female 18 to 34. I've had meetings with people who are in different areas here and different age groups, and I don't want to follow. In my whole life, I've never done things because other people did them. So I look at this and say, college girls may play games, but they're playing more casual games. They're a great audience. They're smart. They know what games are, and they could play. And they may not be playing World of Warcraft. Some might be, but I think that if we can create this, that's a good audience. That's a good immediate audience for us. A second audience for us is the Second Life players.
Yeah.
I think that we can offer something that is going to be more stimulating, long-term, an opportunity for them to get involved, not necessarily the only thing they do, but if they come and they think it's beautiful and they like the gameplay and they like the achievements they get, they like the fame that they achieve, then I think in the end we've gotten to the goal that we want to get to, which is millions of players who are each playing for a different reason.
Okay, so. The Amazons, the Olympics, the time travel, the moving forward and moving backwards in time, in that sense, the ancient Greece. Which is your favourite bit of your platform?
Well, we started with ancient Greece because ancient Greece had so many interesting things going on. We looked at the Roman times, and we looked at the Greek times, and the Greek times had more things that were, it was Socrates and Plato, and there were people who thought and people who did, and there was Alexander the Great and all of those things. And then when I did it, I said, wait a minute, this just can't be guys. What about women? So I came up with the idea of creating this Amazon nation that'll be part of it. The next one will probably be another very cool time in history. And then after that, we probably will do something looking forward.
So
Looking forward is actually more difficult than looking backwards, even though your imagination can take charge. But you don't want to make it so that all of a sudden those things are available in the real world. You really want it to be the future. But I think we'll get there.
So, and with Entropia, with the Entropia surrounded, with the mind art surrounding, if you like, you can actually, as you say, you can actually go to another planet and sell the goods that you have found or made or whatever in Next Island.
Correct. And I think because, Calypso has many, many more players because we just started, I think that people who will find things in ancient Greece will take it back to Calypso and sell it at auction in Calypso. They will sell it at auction in Next Island as well, but I think that the trade between planets is going to be much more active going forward.
So somebody coming in, if I'm coming in and I'm faced with your website and I download the program and I enter into Next Island. Personally, I didn't last very long, but it was a few weeks ago now. So I was attacked by all sorts of animals, and I did move on slowly. But I was, kind of there. Now, people had a little gang of us went in actually together, and people have very varying attitudes towards that. Some right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to beat those creatures.
No, I think that what happened was that when the initial things were put up, it was done more for players who had played before, and you will see over the next 4 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, but not longer than that, a new experience for the new player. A tutoring, mentoring. You'll be met by other players who say, let me show you what this is all about, and it'll be a benefit to them as well. So that attacking was something that put me on the attack. And I haven't changed. It hasn't been changed yet physically, but over the next couple of weeks, it's on the agenda of things we're doing. I could have not opened the doors when we did and fixed many of those things, but I decided that when I got invited to speak at Demo and introduce it, I would take that opportunity and do it. And I say to everybody that when you come in, the experiences will get better every day. We have a whole team working on making that easier, and there won't be any attacks in the Crystal Resort area at all. It just won't happen. There will be if you go traveling outside, but not inside.
So you're getting basically a chance to settle down, just have a look around the corner, as it were, and then choose to go out into the wider world. Is that?
Well, I think that it's a learning process. You listen to the players, and as a pioneer, there will be benefits to being a pioneer, and you'll understand that maybe things aren't exactly the way that they will be in 3 months from now or 3 weeks from now. You will go in, and as a pioneer, there will be a benefit. And one of the benefits would be to be one of the first ones to do something, to open a shop that sells something that you would like to do. Well, once you're the second one, you can't be the first one. And so we're finding that the pioneers, the first people to come in, are going to get a benefit for having been there first and having to put up with some of the things that are being fixed anyway. But I decided to let us open the doors when we did, rather than waiting until we had all the initial pieces. But you will see a daily occurrence of things being made to be easier, more understandable, because a casual what I call a power casual player, wouldn't be able to last in there. And they'll get killed right away. Well, that's not going to be the case in a couple of weeks. It's just that it's programming and it takes a little bit of time and so forth. But I'm happy you asked it, because that's absolutely at the top of our list.
Well, I do know that some of our more aggressive gamers here actually really rose to that occasion and decided it wasn't so. So that you've got a duality of reaction there.
Well,
you mentioned demo.
People,
Sorry, just
yeah. Okay.
I just know that we're going to run out of time because this is
okay.
too interesting.
It's just that there's something for everyone, but I want the gameplay in the initial time. You can go and you can take, you can have a wild experience, but when you start, we want it to be easy, and that's what's being changed now. You were asking about demo. I apologize.
No. It's so tell us about demo, because it's quite an important gig, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And what happens is, while you still have to pay for it, you have to be invited. And if you're not invited, you can't go. You can't say, here's $100,000 I want to launch. But it's companies that are launching or launching a new part of what they have. For us, we decided, okay, we're going to open our doors and time travel will be available on March 1st. And that was what happened. So we did it. In reality, I could have waited 4, 5, 6 weeks, and then you're done, with more of a friendly environment when you first start. But I decided, let's open the doors and let's see what people have to say. And I pay a lot of attention to the reactions of people and what they would like to see.
And what was it like? I mean, our little team.
Being a demo, there were about 1,000 people, maybe a little less, maybe 800. And everybody has a chance to go up for 6 minutes. Wow. And at 6 minutes and 3 seconds, you're shut down. So we had to practice, and there were 3 of us doing it, one about marketing, Meg about the gameplay so people could see what the gameplay was, and me a little bit about the backstory and why I created this. And we wound up at 5:55, which was, when we did the rehearsals, it was 5:20. But at 5:55, I was able to say thank you, and we ran it as close as we possibly could. But venture capitalists are there, corporations are there, the media is there, and some of the biggest companies have started there, including Second Life. When Second Life was originally Linden, I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, Linden World, I think it was.
Right. They were at demo. So it's a pretty cool place.
Okay. So now, we're coming up towards the end of our program, and you talked a little bit about, at some point you would be doing Future Worlds, and what we do at the end of the program, generally speaking, is that we ask our guests to just say what's on their mind, really. What's on their mind? It could be their holidays. It could be food. It could be a cigarette. What is on their mind, and what do they feel like, and what do they see for the future?
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh,
you do that now? Okay.
Yeah, get ready for it.
I'm very lucky that I have a little one who gives me the next generation of what games are going to be and gameplay is going to be, and she loves it. And I'm lucky that she's 10, and when I was 10, I came up with this idea. So it's like the opportunity to live out my dream. I can't imagine any vacation or anything to eat or any place to go or anything that would be cooler for me than that. So I'm living it right now, and I'm loving it. I hope that everybody else, checks it out, and I welcome them messaging me in some way and tell me what they think or what they'd like to see. And What time travel destinations would they like in the future? What would they like to be able to have in their game? What would they like to do? What would they like to create themselves? And their feedback is going to be very important to me and to everybody involved in this project. And there are probably about 40, 50 people involved in the project. So I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, go on. I'm going to ask you one more question because I
Sure.
think you're just the man to answer it, actually. I saw a question today on one of the social networks, and somebody said, I want to build a virtual world, but I'm short of money, and I don't really know what to do. Can anybody advise me? So I'm going to give you that question. I'm going to give you that question, Dave. It's a little unfair.
I wish them luck because we have millions of dollars invested in this. So if they want to create a virtual world, the best thing for them to do is what happened in the internet. They don't have to create the internet. They only have to create a destination. So if they look in Next Island and they say, I would like to do something, and here's what I'd like to do, and they contact us and we say, okay, we can help you do that. But there won't be, in my opinion, 5,000 virtual worlds. There may be 100 one day that are meaningful. I don't believe that everybody's going to have a virtual world because to make it really good will take too much money. And so why not create something inside a virtual world? Could be Second Life's virtual world or it could be our virtual world. It depends on what they want to accomplish. But in ours, we're happy to have them as long as they don't, they play within the rules. That's basically it.
David Post, CEO of NextIsland.com. Thank you very much for joining us today on GRIDwrap. And I think it's been a really, really interesting discussion today. And I've enjoyed hearing about it, and I'm sure our audience has. They've been very lively and out on the net as well. We will be back, ladies and gentlemen, next Monday. There is no Musica Jam this coming Thursday. They're on holiday. So tune in next Monday for another episode of GRIDwrap. And once again, David, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.